Marcus and Terry here with you, talking about talking sober, something like that. Been a long week, but today we're going to talk about, is depression a choice? A lot of people get this mixed up when it comes to sobriety and life in general. Um, so let's dive in. What do you think about that, Terry? Is depression a choice? Is it something that we can just look at and be like, I want to be depressed today, or I don't want to be depressed today, or what are your
Well,
thoughts?
I think in some ways it's not a choice because depression is often caused by something. Sometimes it's not, however, but sometimes it's caused by a situation or something like that.
Hmm.
That maybe someone passed away, or for me, it's I've been depressed because of a passing of a loved one. I've been depressed because of work situations that just felt hopeless. I was definitely had serious bouts of depression through my drinking, and I believe that caused it. But then, just the maybe about a month ago, I was pretty depressed for a few days, and I really couldn't put my finger onto why.
Hmm.
Sometimes it just happens, and that's the interesting thing about depression is that sometimes there's just no cause whatsoever.
Yeah.
However, I think I have a choice on how to deal with the depression, and that there are things I can do to work my way out of the depression. It's not necessarily a quick fix, but it usually works over the long run, at least.
Okay. Now, would you say that throughout your life you are more prone to depression than the majority of people you've met, or
I would say I am not. I've
okay?
dealt with depression in my life as far as my mom was a very depressed person
Hmm.
much of her life, and she had to deal with that her entire life. And I think it that may have been caused by her situation as far as being physically unable to do many things,
Hmm.
and that kind of in the last 25 years, it sentenced her to her bed,
Yeah.
and so maybe that was a cause of it. But for me, I have not been. I'm not that depressed of a person
Okay.
in normal day-to-day life.
Okay. Yeah, I would say for me throughout my life, I was always prone to depression, and my mind would go down the depression route. And I always felt like depression was something that happened to me. Like it was like, oh, I'm just going along, and all of a sudden, depression happens to me. Life happens to me. This happened to me, and I would kind of just like roll over and wallow in it. Like, okay, well, this happened to me, therefore, I have to deal with it. This happened to me, therefore, I have to do this. Instead of looking at
Yep.
it as, well, depression is just a chemical response in our body to various stimuli. Like all throughout our life, all throughout our day, we're taking in tons and tons of stimuli. And certain things might depress us, certain things might cause us to feel sad, might cause us to feel hopeless, might cause us to feel a certain way. And I've found that even though my mind wants to go there, right, even though now I've trained my brain, now that I'm pushing 40, I've trained my brain over the last 5 years being sober to look at that and to notice it and say, hey, wait a minute, this is a pattern. Depression is a pattern. Depression is something where your mind says X equals X, Y equals Y, and Z equals Z, therefore I need to be depressed. I lost my job, that equals I'm a failure. I did this, that equals this. My spouse dumped me, that equals this. It's like the old country song, the dog ran out and the wife left me and I ain't got nothing but a pickup truck. And therefore, I'm going to be depressed and write a song about it, or therefore, I'm going to be depressed. And I think a lot of times we look at that rather than saying, hey, you know what? This is something that I can choose to either dive into or not. So I would say that feelings of sadness, feelings of, hey, that didn't work the way that I wanted, those might not be a choice. Sometimes they just happen. Sometimes you
Right.
just get a feeling. A lot of people, I remember I would sit in therapist offices for years and they would tell me, no one can make you feel anything. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's true to a point, but I can make someone feel scared. Like if I put on a mask and walked up to Terry on the Tenderloin in San Francisco at 1 in the morning and said, hey, dude, give me your money, I can make Terry afraid. right? That's gonna happen, and he can do the same thing to me. It's gonna be a frightening thing. I can probably make someone feel sad, right? I could probably do that. Now, is it actually me forcing them to be sad? Is it me actually forcing Terry to be afraid? No. In and of his body, he's generating those, and in his mind, he's generating those himself. Um,
Yes.
so there is a little bit of BS to be called on the idea of no one can make you feel anything. People can make you feel things. Some guy can cut me off at a high speed in the car, and I could feel afraid, or I could get jittery, or I could get that brief moment of, hey, F you, buddy. You know, did he make that? Did he cause it? No, but he certainly didn't, not cause it. So we have to look at that. And I think depression is the same way, where it's like, okay, is this external thing causing our depression? Well, it might cause the feelings. Now, what happens, I find, is that once we label something as I am depressed, that's when things go all crazy, because now we're like, okay, this is what I have. Now I got to figure out what to do with it. Instead of, hey, you know what? Like that old Bible verse, or I think it was a Beatles song. To everything, there's a season. Turn, turn, turn. There's a season to be happy, a season to be sad. There's a season to be, excited. There's seasons for everything, and I think we got to look at that and say, well, maybe sometimes there's like a depression season. Maybe sometimes that just happens, and instead of wallowing in it and saying, oh, let's find out how to cure this or what to do, maybe it's just time. Like Terry was saying, when you have a loss of a loved one, that's an okay time to be a little sad or a
Yep.
lot sad. That's okay. And it's okay to grieve it without attachment. I think the key here is emotions without attachment. I can be feeling sad. I don't have to be sad. I can have feelings of depression and hopelessness. I don't have to be depressed. I don't have to live in it. I don't have to dive into it. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where we're talking about how my mind was prone to it. And now I've learned that. I'm like, yeah, now I know my mind's prone to it, so I know it's going to take one little thing and go down the rabbit hole. And now that I know that, I can kind of stop it. Right? What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Yeah, I agree completely. It's definitely I can easily dwell on the depression, and not taking action is one of the things that will make the depression worse for me. What I found is, like, when I lost my mom last year, just keeping going with my life, and doing things maybe to help other people, things like that. Taking action is definitely a key for getting out of the depression, and doing things on a daily basis, like that I want to do. Nothing's You always have things you have to do. You have to work, you have to do certain things that may not be so fun, but always putting in there on a daily basis, like
Yeah.
going on a bike ride, walking my dog, things like that are positive, and that really helps with my depression, definitely.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think the key is really to look at one of the things that I learned early on, but I didn't really get it. We had this youth minister at our church, and the dude was a whack job. He should be in jail, but apparently they don't get prosecuted in church, so whatever. But the dude was a whack job, and I remember one time he was telling me, some days I just need to have a self-pity day. I need to wallow in my self-pity. And, in churches, they talk a lot about pride. Don't have pride. Don't be proud. And it's funny because I was watching this guy. He was like 30 or 27 at the time. And he was wallowing in his self-pity, but also telling us, don't be prideful. And I was thinking to myself, well, isn't self-pity also pride? Like, if you're pitying yourself, you are having pride in yourself. It might be, pride of, I deserve better, I have this, or I don't have this. But in the essence, at the core, it's pride. And I think in the essence, depression is stemming from pride. I'm not getting what I want. Things are not turning out how I want. My life isn't the way I want to do it. And you'd add a little caveat, I'm not willing to do what I need to do to get out of it. When I was drinking, this was just crazy. I mean, it was absolute craziness, where I would sit there and I'd wallow in my self-pity for days, depressed for days, just like barely get up off the couch. I had enough in me to like walk over to the computer and work. Luckily, I worked at home at the time. But I would just wallow in my self-pity. I would wallow in Why is my life not the way I want it? And I'd blame everyone and everything but myself. I didn't look at it and say, well, probably because you're an alcoholic and you drink all day instead of working. Very difficult to drink and work. Not a good combo. Very difficult to drink and do damn near anything, but working is one of them. And we have to look at that and say, well, I was focusing so much on me. I was in this bubble of me, and I didn't see a way out, right? It was like if you were to go in the water, and you go in the water and you go to a fish and you're like, hey, dude, tell me about water. And you'd be like, what? What do you mean? Tell you about water? What the hell's water? Like, what are you talking about? And probably swim away and be like, that dude's nuts. A fish doesn't know how to describe water because it's the situation he's in. It's the bubble he's in. Now, if I was to take that fish out of the water, pretty soon he's going to be like gasping for water, and he's going to be like, oh, shit, now I know what water is. It's that shit I live in that I need to breathe. Same kind of thing with us, right? We don't think about air. We don't think about what we need for air. Put us in water. Pretty soon we're like, hey, I need to get to the surface. And we can't describe, we don't know the situation we're in. We can't see a way out of the situation we're in because we're in it. Just like the fish. He can't see a way out, right? If he was depressed about water, he'd be a pretty sad little fish because he's like, that's all I got. That's all I know. And when we're depressed about our life, oftentimes it's like, it's all, this is what we know. This is what I got. This is what has happened to me. This is where life has found me. Instead of raising up your consciousness saying, well, there's a lot of other stuff going on out there. There's a lot of other things. One of the keys to depression is be grateful for the little things you have. Be grateful for the little stuff. I learned after I got sober, from a social standpoint, a social economic standpoint, I was, for lack of a better term, fucked, right? I got sober and I was like, okay, I mean, I'm still making money. It wasn't what I was used to. My whole world was turned on its head. And I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this happen? And I learned to be grateful in the things I used to be like, oh, that would be shit. I wouldn't want that. That would be terrible. I'd be depressed if I got that. And I learned to be grateful for the little things. Like, I wake up, my kids are there. Doesn't matter if we're in a mansion, my kids are still there. And it's kind of like Alan Watts says. He's like, you know, a lot of people get hung up on things, and a lot of depression is about what I don't have or what I want or who I want. And we got to look at it and say, well, I can only occupy so much space at a time. Right? I got a big yard here. I got a decent-sized house, but I'm actually only occupying about 2 or 3 square feet. Like, that's all I could do. I don't care how big your house is. You can only occupy 2 to 3 square feet at a time. You can only eat 1 roast beef at a time. You can only drive 1 car at a time. And oftentimes we look at this and we have these false senses of security. We have these false senses of what we want. And I find someone was bringing up Tony Robbins stuff, and I like Tony Robbins stuff to a point, but I think where the self-help movement fails us is that it's a constant need for more, a constant need to drive, to push, and there's no teaching on contentment. They don't teach you, hey, be content where you are right now and go for something else. It's the whole idea of attachment. I can want something without being attached to it. I can want a new car, a new house, a new wife, a new relationship, a new baby, whatever it is. I can want these things without being attached to them. Someone who's attached to them is going to be like, well, my identity's wrapped up in it. Like,
Right.
you look at someone who wants to have a child, and maybe their body can't have a child. And they're attached to it. They're like, well, I wanted to be a mother. And it's like, well, you can still be a mother. It just might not be your biological kid. And I realize that certain situations like this can be sad. And it's okay to grieve them. And it's okay to grieve without attachment. Right? Does that make sense to everyone? Right? And I think that's really a lot of things that goes on. Because I was actually watching a documentary about the self-help movement, because that was something that I was really big into before I got sober. And I found that our whole culture, our whole world here in America, and starting to branch out a lot to other places too, is about desire. And the Buddha said the essence of suffering, the cause of suffering, is desire. I desire something to be different. And I would go a step further and say, well, depression is probably about desire as well, right? What do you think about that, Terry?
Well, yeah, depression is definitely everything you said, and on top of that, sometimes depression can happen with fear. When I had legal problems, and I'm
Yep.
like looking at going to jail for a little bit, and I'm like, you know, I was afraid. That really thrust me into depression. The work situation, when I had to work so many hours that I couldn't look for another job, but I hated my job with a passion, and that just thrust me into depression. It made me do worse. It made me drink more. And then the drinking, this that circle of alcoholism, that was a tough one. That was very depressing when I'm walking to the liquor store every other day, that 12-minute walk going, this will be my last bottle. Just the unbelievable depression combined with the detox symptoms I'm going through before I got that bottle. It was a horrible thing. And the fear of wanting, of what's going to happen, and then the desire to want more. Those can be huge in embellishing the depression. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like I find that no matter where you're at right now, like if you feel depressed right now, sit there and really look at what it means to feel that way.
Right.
Look at what, because there is really no feeling of depression. That's just like all that we have. Like we have to look at it. And there's another thing like describing water to fish. It's not going to happen. He's not going to get it, right? It's like describing how the universe never ends. It's like you're not going to get it. I mean, you could try, but you ain't going to get it. Um, who are we getting an echo on? To me or Terry?
Echo, echo, echo.
Okay. It might be
Yep.
yours. I'll turn yours down a little bit because I know when my speakers are up, we get a little bit of an echo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got to look at that and say, well, all these words in the English language we've made to describe certain things, which means we don't actually experience them. Like if I go outside and I say, there's a tree. I'm not actually experiencing the tree. I'm describing the tree. I'm thinking about the tree, but I'm not experiencing it. Same kind of thing with depression. If we use these terms and these words to say, I am depressed, I have no hope, everything sucks, my life is in the toilet or whatever it is, we're not actually experiencing it. And here's the funny thing. In our culture, we have these emotions that we put into categories. And we have this category of good emotions. When I'm happy, I'm ecstatic, I feel attractive, confident. Those are good. And then we're like sad, angry, mad, depressed, anything that goes into that, right? And we're like, these are bad. And what if I was to challenge you and say that neither of them is good or bad?
Right.
Like being happy, it's okay. And being sad, it's okay too. Like being sad, it's not going to kill us.
Right.
Okay? Drinking alcohol because we're sad, well, that almost killed me, and it probably almost killed Terry too. And
Yep.
we got to look at that and say, well, is that a good response? Because now we got to look at that and say, well, it's okay. It is okay to be sad. It is okay to be angry. It's what you do with it next that is the thing. Because we look at it, and it's kind of like how alcohol is obsession of the mind and compulsion of the body. We have an obsession of the mind. I don't like the way I feel. I don't like what I'm thinking about. I need to drink to get rid of it. Same thing happens with depression or anger. I'm angry, so I need to vindicate. I need to bring justice, which is okay in the legal system. I mean, obviously people should be punished, but we have to look at it and say, sometimes when I'm angry about someone cutting me off on the freeway, I don't have to be attached to it. I just, yeah, I'm a little angry because that guy was like, I'm better than everyone else, therefore I'm going to cut everyone else off and put everyone's life at risk because I'm an ass. And it's like, yeah, I'm kind of angry that there's asses in the world. It's whatever. That's kind of irritating. But do I need to do anything? Do I need to go chase that guy down the road and be like, you're going to see my middle fingers and I'm going to almost cause a wreck because I'm so pissed at you that I'm going to have road rage? I don't need to do that.
No.
But I can sit there and be like, hey, it's cool. A little angry, whatever. I'm a little sad. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get the job opportunity. I'm a little disappointed that my spouse won't do this. And one of the things I learned, and tell me what your thoughts are on this. This was a game changer I learned in rehab, and it was that the best you can do in life with other people is ask for cooperation. It's all I can do. I can just say,
Yeah.
hey, would you like to give me a raise? Would you like to be nice to me? Would you like to go on a dinner? Would you like to do this? Would you like to do your job? And they could say yes or no, and then I respond. And I can get all worked up and be like, people these days should do this and do this, and you see it all the time on the news. These damn millennials, those baby boomers, those silent generation, they're the ones ruining the country. It's like, we're all just people. We're all just doing our thing. You can pigeonhole and you can get angry at a group all you want, or you could be content and say, well, what do I want to see in the world? I'm going to become that. So that was a tangent. Back to depression.
No, but that's an important one, and that's what I've learned as well from rehab and from being sober is just ask for cooperation. I had started this part-time job in January, and all of a sudden the head guy left, and I kind of became the head guy by default, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to live my job like I'd done before. And that's what I did. I did exactly that. I've learned this in sobriety is I went to the boss. I said, just want to let you know, I just want to talk to you about this. I'd like your cooperation with this. I'd love to stay working here, but I don't want to be the boss. I just want to do what I'm doing right now. That's what I was hired to do. And that's all I could do. And then I just had to wait for his response. And if his response was going to be, no, you need to keep doing what you're doing, you need to keep being the boss, then I was just my response would have been, thank you very much, I'm going to walk away now. And that was just so much more freeing for me. It kept me out of the depression because I could feel myself getting all stressed out and anxiety and depressed about the fact that I was back to where I was many years ago when I didn't want to do that much work. And it helped me immensely. And that's what's helped me in sobriety a lot is just asking, not understanding that people may not respond the way I want. I think that's the most difficult thing for me is when they respond to me after asking for their cooperation or whatever, and they're not going to do what I want them to do, is not reacting in a negative way, but rather responding in a better way. And that's it. That seems to help me a lot in sobriety. I hear a
Yeah.
TV in the background. Okay.
I think I fixed it. We had one instance of this running, which when
Huh.
I put in the Skype feed from Terry, it's actually recording my computer, so I got to make sure everything's off. And I have like 50 monitors here. If you guys could see my setup, it's pretty crazy. So this is what we're dealing with, just so you guys know when we're trying to make everything. So let us know what does work and doesn't. This is what it looks like here.
You might hear my snoring dog in the background too, but there's really nothing I can do. He's 13 years old. He
Yeah,
wants to
so-
hang out.
It's cool, and he's sober too. So I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
that's good.
It's not snoring.
But yeah, like with the depression thing, it's like, we got to look at it and say, well, right now I'm okay. Like right now you're usually okay. And then you have to focus and say, well, am I going to attach to this? Or what am I going to do on a daily basis? Because one of the things the self-help movement has brought that's good is the idea of energy in motion, emotion, and the idea of getting out and doing something outside of yourself. The best way to get out of depression is to help people.
Yep.
The best way to get out of depression is to get out and get moving. Like right now, my body is aching, and I know I should go to the gym, but I'm just not. I haven't been to the gym in like 2 months or so. And so I'm like, I know that would help. And oftentimes we know what we need to do, but for some reason we don't do it. And it's probably because the depression is doing something for us, right? It's either making an excuse, like, okay, well, if I go do something and I try, what if I fail? Okay, if I stay depressed, like that's actually, in a weird way, depression is more comfortable than going out and doing what will make us not depressed, right? It's like you're in this bubble, you're in this comfort zone of, well, I'm sad, this is where we're at right now, and I don't really want to do anything to change because it's scary. Like, what's
Yeah.
going to happen if I actually have to take control of my life, take charge of my life, take responsibility for my actions, right? It's a lot easier to sit around and drink and talk to myself about being depressed. And it reminds me of a talk I listened to years ago, AA talk I used to listen to. And this guy says, us alcoholics are the kind of people where your boss will come to you and he'll be like, hey, I need to talk to you. And you'll have to go sit in the bathroom for an hour and stew about what you think he's going to talk to you about. And you sit there and you're having a full-on conversation in your head of, well, what about this? What about that? Well, that guy did that, and it can't be that bad. No, he should fire that. And you go in the meeting and you're like all fired up about what it could be about, and you don't even know. The dude might want to give you a raise or whatever. Who knows? And then when you're done talking to the guy, you got to go back in the bathroom for another hour and talk about what he just said. And it's like you spend all this time talking about what could have happened or what did happen instead of living in what's happening. And you're missing life as it's passing by because you're saying, I'm depressed. And I would actually challenge it and say, if you're living in the here and now, if you're living for this moment, right in this moment, I don't think you can be depressed, because depression is about past and future. It's about, I don't see light at the end of the tunnel. This happened to me. Right now, what's happening to me right now? Well, right now, I'm sitting in my office, and I'm okay. And right now, you're sitting where you're sitting or standing where you're standing, and you're okay. Yeah, but Marcus, you don't understand. There's no hope. Well, no hope is future.
Right.
You don't know. Like right now, there is hope. There's hope in right now, and life is made of little successions of moments of right now. That's all life is made of. And when you find yourself wallowing in it, go back to the basic necessity of life, which is breath. And we look at it, and we have plans, and we have ideas, and we have things and desires. But without our next breath, we have nothing. You have nothing without your next breath. And I could be grateful for this breath and the next one, and be grateful for the fact that I'm alive. And I can look at the fact that most of my depression stems from social economic status. There was actually a documentary I was watching about how monkeys or primates, I don't know, it might have been chimpanzees or something, how primates respond to the pecking order of society. And they were going through, and this guy goes to Africa, and he gets this primate, and he's like, that one's the boss. And he knows because the other primates ain't screwing with him. They're like, I ain't messing with you. Like, this dude goes over, he takes your woman, that's his lady. It's done. He's just, I'm the boss. What you gonna do about it, buddy? And they actually found that the lower these people were in the social status, the more disease they had, the more depression they had, the fatter they got around their midsection, which he was actually attributing to the Western society. We carry our fat in our midsection. And it's due to stress, and it's due to stress from socioeconomic status. And when you let go of that and you say, I'm not defined by my job, I'm not defined by my pecking order, I'm not defined by how much money I have, I'm not defined by my spouse, I'm not defined by the car I drive, I'm more than that. I'm more than that. Even if you look at it, like our society has a way of saying, that guy is rich, he's worth more than this guy. And I remember I grew up, my dad was like, Jim Carrey's worth this much. That guy's worth this much. And I would always be curious, like, worth? He's worth it or he has it? Like, having a pile of money doesn't mean that one person is worth more than another. Being the boss doesn't mean you're worth more than the workers.
Right.
It might mean you have more money, you can buy more stuff. And it's funny because I look at this in my life, and I've seen people, and my dad was very big, he still is, on success. He's learning now. but he was big on success. And, that guy who is a school teacher that makes 20 grand a year who loves his life isn't successful because he doesn't have money. But the millionaire who's miserable, who is obsessed with money, who grinds and sweats and slaves, he should be happy because he has the money. And it's like, well, wait a minute. That seems a little backwards to me. Because here's a guy who loves his life, and success should be mattered by how much you love your life, how much you enjoy your moment right now.
Right.
Not what you have. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Oh, I agree completely. But before I got sober, I wanted everything. Wanted to be rich. Wanted the car, the huge house. Nothing was good enough for me. And since I got sober, man, I'm happy with what I have. I am so lucky and so blessed with what I've been given and what I've been allowed to keep with all the damage that I caused in my drinking. It's amazing. There's a news story this morning about how Britney Spears she may never tour again, and because she's dealing with this huge depression and problems in her personal life, and I think some of it's physical, some of it's legal or whatever. But yeah, it's not about the money; it's about happiness, and that's what I try to do, is just try to live in the gratitude and do what's gonna make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think a lot of times, a lot of it comes from being lockstepped into a role. We
right.
don't realize it, but throughout our life, from age 0 to, like, I don't know, for me it was age 35. Terry, you could let us know when it happened for you. You get into a role. And you're like, I am Marcus. I am the money guy. This is what I am. This is who I am. This is what I do. You come up to me. You screw with me. This is me. You can't get in my bubble. Or for Terry, maybe it was, I'm Terry the chef. I cook the good food. People come to me to eat, and I should be respected, or whatever it is. And we get locked into a role like Britney Spears, locked into a very difficult role to get out of. Right? I am Britney Spears, the pop star. Got a bunch of money. I got what everyone else says they want. And there's a great quote by Jim Carrey. And if you struggle with depression and stuff, I would urge you to watch Jim Carrey's new stuff. A lot of the media is saying, oh, he's a whack job. But I think if you listen, what he's doing is he's using the whack job persona to get you guys, or to get whoever's listening, to wake up to something. And one of his quotes he said recently is that, I wish everyone on earth would get rich and famous so that they can find out that the key to life is not getting rich and famous. Like, it's not going to do a damn thing for you. And we look at it and we get lockstepped into the role. And once we let go of it and we say, well, I'm Marcus or whatever, like who even named me? What's a Marcus? I didn't choose it. And you get in the role and it's like, well, I'm just me. This is what it is. Some guy can come along and say, well, I don't like it. I don't think you should be happy. And it's like, well, that's you. That's your opinion, and that's great. And once we get out of that role, there was a story I was telling on another training. It's a story from Ram Dass. And he's talking about this guy who starts getting successful in this little community. And he gets really successful. And he's like, okay, now that I'm successful, I need to go buy a suit from Zumbach the Tailor. Zumbach the Tailor is the greatest suit maker of all time. And now that I'm successful, I need to show the world by having a Zumbach suit. And he goes to Zumbach and he gets fitted and everything. And he comes back to get his suit. And he gets his suit and he's like, okay, this is beautiful. This is a wonderful suit. And so he puts the suit on. And he's like, Mr. Man, what do you think of the suit? And he goes, well, it's beautiful, but this arm is a little bit shorter than this arm. He goes, nothing wrong with the suit. It's the way you're standing. Put it like this. And he crooks him like this. And he's like, okay. Well, Mr. Zumbach, these pants, they're a little bunched up in the back, and I don't like that. Oh, no, not the suit. It's the way you're standing. And he puts him like this. And all of a sudden, he's got him all quirked. And the suit is beautiful, and it's fitting perfectly. And so he's like, okay. And he hobbles out of there, and he gets on the bus to go home. And this guy on the bus goes, man, that is a beautiful suit. Beautiful suit. I'll bet you Zumbach the tailor made that suit. And he goes, how did you know? And he goes, well, only someone as skilled as Zumbek could fit a suit on someone as crippled as you. And he sits there and he goes, wait a minute. And the moral of the story is that we're all wearing Zumbek's suit. We're wearing a beautiful suit that we portray to everyone else, but it doesn't fit. It's a role that life put on us. It's not who we are, right? And we have to look at that and say, well, am I wearing Zumbek's suit? Am I wearing a suit that I don't really like or I don't really want? And we got to kind of focus on that and let go of all these things that we think we are, of all these things that society thinks we are, of all these things that we try to live up to, and just say, hey, I'm me, flaws and all. And if you can't take that, well, then maybe that's your bad, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense with me. I'm thinking about when I started cooking when I was like 16 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I've worked in restaurants and hotels and catering most of my life. And I finally started with a large hotel company in my late 20s, and I worked there for a couple decades. And I just did what I thought I was supposed to do, what they told me I should do, and I followed the footsteps of the chef before me, the chef above him, the chef above him, and just kept following the footsteps. And I started to dislike my jobs more and more each step I took up until I just couldn't handle it anymore. And drinking was becoming more and more through those decades. And I was trying to fit into what society or what they were telling me I was supposed to do. And even today, I look back and said I should have stayed in the banquet kitchen. Everybody that's in the banquet kitchen is still there. They love their job, and I look at that and go, yeah, maybe I should have done that, or maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't be where I am today and happy as I am today if I did stay. But either way, I continued on that road, and eventually alcohol took over everything. But nowadays, well, also during that time, I wanted to not be a chef anymore. I didn't want to work the nights and weekends like chefs always have to do. I wanted to get a regular job, and I wasn't happy at all. And that was how I lived. And eventually, after I got sober, I kind of got an acceptance. I started to accept the fact that, I'm a good chef. I'm pretty good at this. Let's get a job being a chef under my own terms. So that way I fit myself. And I'm happy being a chef now. I don't do it every day of the week. I don't work too much. It's just enough work. It's exactly the way I want to do it. And I enjoy my job now. I enjoy the nights and weekends that I have to work sometimes, and that's okay. It's all good because it's on my terms. It's the way I wanted to do it. So I'm not trying to fit that suit.
Yeah, and it's funny because we can wear a suit, but know it's a suit. Like, that's the key, is knowing it's a suit.
Right.
Like, I didn't know it was a suit before. I thought that was me. I thought that I was like, I was like emperor with no clothes.
Yeah.
And no one wanted to tell me I had no clothes, but I was like, hey, dude, I'm all out there, right? And we got to look at it, too, because I think a lot of depression stems from our life philosophy. What is your life philosophy? What do you believe about life? Right? And you see some people that are in religious groups and they're happy. One of the things I've always noticed is like Mormon people are always happy and they're always kind. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. I'm not going to go join that church because that's not my bag. But what is it that they have? Well, they have a life philosophy. Their life philosophy is family is important, community is important, which I find a lot of alcoholics are missing the element of community, which is why AA and meetings and groups work well, because they're missing the element of community. A lot of times we find ourselves drinking on the couch or drinking in our office or whatever it is, and we're not going out. We don't have the social interaction, which is a big part. And we got to look at that and say, well, who are the people that have happiness and what's their life philosophy? What do they believe? Like for me, I found happiness when I realized that I'm not special. I'm one of 8 billion people on the planet. Like, the world doesn't spin for me. The world doesn't owe me anything. And my true belief and my philosophy is that I deserve what the least person on earth has. So the guy who wakes up and has absolutely nothing, or he's born into a family of poverty and nothing, that's what I deserve. Because I didn't choose where I was born. I didn't choose the family I was born into. I didn't choose prosperity or this. I just was born into it. So if I can't choose the very least element of my life, then I don't really deserve anything. Everything's a gift. Everything above what the least has is a gift. And now it's my responsibility to take my gift and say, well, how can I help others? Right? And not in like a narcissistic way of I'm better, therefore I should help. Just let's all help each other out in the way that here in Florida, you know, you have neighbors you never meet, and then there's a hurricane, and everyone comes out with the saws and the food, and we're all helping each other clean up. And it's not an egotistical way of, oh man, your house got fucked and mine didn't because I got a better house or whatever. It's not like that. It's just a bunch of people helping each other out. And I find that that's what life's about, is we're all here to help each other out. And somewhere along the way in Western culture, we got this idea that we're individual. I'm individual. This is my money. This is my food. Don't come near my shit. This is mine. Right? And that causes depression in and of itself because we're isolating. We're not being ourselves. And isolation and depression love each other.
Yep.
Depression just loves to feast on isolation because then it'll get you alone and it'll be like, hey, buddy, yeah, your life's pretty fucked up. Go look at that guy. Yeah, I feel pretty bad about that. Look at that guy. Hey, look at this dude. He doesn't deserve shit and he's a billionaire. Look at him. What about this guy? Right? And it'll feast on it until you say, depression doesn't own me. And this is the part where depression becomes a choice. I can have a feeling, and I can say, yeah, I'm sad, a little disappointed, a little angry, but I'm not going to be angry. I'm just going to have the feeling. I'm just going to have the feeling of depression. Just say, yeah, I'm a little sad right now, a little disappointed, and that's okay. But I'm not going to put on the Zumback suit and say, I'm depressed. I'm not going to do it because I'm not. But I could have the feelings of it.
Right.
All right. You want to take some comments?
And taking that depression and taking those choices in small steps, that's a big thing. You can't get over depression. Well, usually you can't get over depression just all at once. It's just those small actions that you take that are going to help immensely. Sure, I'll go back to the beginning. Well, Vav Viadi said, from depression to anger, very fast problems with family. And then you say next one down, I have moments that I have to stop, cannot drive, sinking very low. Action does conquer fear. And for me, when I'm depressed or angry, for that matter, I do have to pause and I have to stop and take a look at it. And I'm a person that when I get angry or depressed, I'm liable to react in a quick negative way, and that's why I really have to concentrate on my responding rather than reacting. That's an important thing.
Yeah, and I think stop fighting it.
Yeah.
Just be with it. Doesn't mean wallow in it. That doesn't mean obsess over it. Just be in it. Be like, okay, right now I'm sad. In like 20 minutes, I probably won't be. But right now, it's okay. It's like, I remember I grew up as the kid. I was the tough kid. I was little. I looked like a 10-year-old when I was in high school. 13. I looked 13, right, when I was like 18. But I always portrayed myself as tough. That was my thing. They're like, Marcus is tough. And I'm like, yeah, I'm tough. I get spanked and I'm tough. I don't cry. Something happens, I'm tough. I don't cry. And I taught myself that crying was bad. And it's kind of like, I remember a Seinfeld episode, and he's talking about this girl that he's dating, and when he breaks up with her, and he's like, I can't break up with a girl because when they start crying, it's like they're on fire, and I got to put them out, right? And that's how we look at it, rather than, well, they're grieving something. And he was admiring the guy because there's this guy in the restaurant, and the dude's just like eating his sandwich, and he's like, yeah, I'm breaking up with you. And the girl's like weeping, and he's just grabbing stuff off her plate, and he doesn't even give a shit. And I don't think we want to be that way, but we can also just be like, wow, you know, it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be sad.
Right.
Sometimes it's not a negative thing. We don't need to push it out. And I find that as alcoholics, we're trying to push out every feeling that's not good or not taught to be good, I should say.
Sadness is a tool.
It is a
Fear
tool.
is a tool.
And it could be good. Like, hey, I'm grieving the loss of someone I loved.
Right.
You know?
You should be.
And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
So we got to look at that. Okay. Let's see. Other questions we got here?
Let's see. Siga says, not too much depression, but very hyper always. I was kind of hyper when I first got sober, and I did have to, I don't know, I just kind of used it, and I just made sure I wasn't hyper doing nothing. I just got into action. It was hard to be hyper and be physically ill from the alcoholism that I had at the same time. So I had to try not to do too much because I just physically couldn't. I had to be careful. Um, Chris Moore, good morning, gentlemen. I'm on day 68 sober. Good job, Chris. True miracle.
Awesome.
You guys helped me greatly, and I'm so thankful. And you're welcome, and thank you for being here. We really appreciate that. Jay Walker's back. Good to see you,
Yeah,
Jay.
I haven't seen him in a long time.
It's tricky. We want to be free, but we have to not want to be free, or we won't be free. LOL. What do you think?
It's tricky. We want to be free, but we have to not want to be. Yes, exactly. By wanting, here's the paradox of self help in the self help industry. Um, the reason you're not better is the very reason you want to be. Okay, so the reason you want to be not depressed is the reason you're depressed. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? Like, you can't get where you want to go by just desiring it. Just desire enough is not going to help. And the fact that you want it, right? Like, why do I want to be better? Well, I want to be better so that I'm not like these people. Okay. Or I want to be better because of this. Instead of just saying, I'm going to live now and I'm going to accept what is right now. Acceptance is key. Now, I say acceptance, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, am I just rolling over and taking one? You know, is that what I'm doing? No, not at all. You're accepting where things are now. Maybe later you'll get more, have more, whatever. But right now I'm accepting where I'm at and my lot in life. And in that place I can grow. Does
Right.
that make sense to everyone?
And you don't have to being in acceptance doesn't mean you're in agreement. That's a key
Exactly.
distinction there. So,
Yes.
yeah. Let's see what else we got. I look forward to Thursdays. I'm 8 weeks sober today. Thanks, Terry and Marcus. And that's from Darla. And Darla's got a couple more comments
Awesome,
here.
Darla.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again. There's the TV in the background. By the way, Marcus, fish breathe oxygen, not water. Just
It
kidding.
does say in the disclaimer that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So,
There you go. Good job. Um, Andor says, it's not my own sentence, but I remember it well. We often mistake happiness with pleasure. Pleasure you can buy, happiness is for free. Sure, absolutely. And you
he
also
also
say,
says, in accordance with the drinking stuff, we seek pleasure from the alcohol, dopamine short term, but we should go for other things that make us happy, serotonin long term. True. And I think what happens with alcohol and depression is it hijacks your risk reward system, and you start to need more to get the same high. So, like, if I'm hijacking my happiness system, and I'm like, wow, this alcohol made me happy. Wow, now I need 2 alcohols to make me happy. Now I need 5. Now I need to get shit faced drunk to be happy. What's going to happen when you stop is you're going to be like, wow, all the happiness stuff's gone because
right,
that's what made me happy. And you're going to have to muscle it through for a while. You're going to have to be like, well, some days I just feel like shit. And a lot of people disagree. But I think some days just not drinking is enough. Some days you get through the day and you're just like, this day sucks ass, but I didn't drink. So that's a win.
yes, it is.
Um, so yeah, thanks for that comment, Andor. I think that's a good one.
Yep.
After our call today, I'm actually meeting with a person that I'm probably gonna bring on to help out with social media for the Talk Sober channel. Because we want to use this. Me and Terry's dream and our goal is to reach lots of people with this, because we believe that alcohol education in America is so badly lacking. And there's so much misinformation. There's so much stuff going around, and the success rates of a lot of things are just not where they should be. Like, people need the education to get sober. If you do want to help out with that, she's gonna be a paid person. So if you guys want to help out with the channel, go to talksober.com, click on the support the channel. We got lots of tools for you. You guys get a copy of my book when it's out. You get most of it now. Some videos, some MP3s you can listen to. But we'd appreciate your help. Again, it's not like we're getting rich on the thing. I think right now it's actually losing money, and it'll lose more once I bring this new person on. But I can float it with something else, so I'm cool with that. And if you guys want to help out, we would appreciate that. It's less than $2 a day, or less than $2.50 a day or something, which is less than a beer if you have it at home. So you can help us out with it. If you can. If not, I totally understand. We do this as a free service, so that's totally cool. But if you do want to help out, talksober.com, there's a big support the channel button. You can support us, help us out. And as you guys can see, if you guys have been coming on for any amount of weeks, people are staying sober with the materials we're providing, which is incredible. Like, I never even thought in a million years that just a little YouTube channel would change or help a lot of lives, because you guys change your life. We just give you the information,
Right.
Which I think is really cool, and we want you guys to be a part of that too. And help out, whether it's through the comments, whether it's helping out the channel with the monthly thing, getting all that stuff as well. But we want you guys to be part of what we're doing here, and we want to make it bigger. I want to reach millions of alcoholics rather than hundreds of thousands or however many we've reached. Well,
Right on.
hundreds of thousands have seen the videos. I don't know how many we've actually reached, but cool. And we're turning it into a alcohol education resource, which is what the monthly thing's about as well.
And you guys keep on coming onto these webinars and commenting. We learn a lot from what you guys are going through and what you've experienced and what's worked and what hasn't worked. So keep it up. We love seeing you.
And a shout out to one of our members, Meg. Meg's on here all the time. She's not here today. She's going through some hard stuff. Talk to her on Facebook a little bit, which we do have a Facebook group you can find out about. I don't remember where I put the link. I think it's facebook.com/talksober or something like that. And she's having a hard time. So thoughts and prayers with her, and, maybe send her some encouraging words in the comments or something like that. Because we want to get her sober, and she's dealt with a lot of stuff, just like I know a lot of you guys have dealt with a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of things in your life. And, you can turn it around, and that part is a choice. It is a choice to say, I can get out of my situation. It might not be ideal, might not be perfect, might not be what I want, but it's what I got, and I'm going to live with that right now, and I'm going to be okay with that right now. And put your health and your mental stability first and foremost. And I think that's the key. But, Meg, we're thinking about you. Stay sober. Keep on keeping on.
Congratulations, Andor, 87 days. Good job.
Awesome.
Good job.
3 more days to 90. That's a good time.
Yep.
Well, anything's a good time. 1 day is a good time. 2 days is a good time. 0 days is a good time. So, yeah. All right, so I think that's about it for all today. Unless there's any other last-minute questions, let us know, and we'll do that. Any last-minute thoughts there, Terry?
Well, depression, you can always depression it can be a choice. Well, how you deal with depression can be a choice. And one thing you have to do is you got to be patient, and just try to be patient with yourself. You got to try to focus on the now, focus on the present, take little steps to get yourself better. And another way to try to get out of depression is to get involved in doing something, like maybe just trying to exercise just a little, whatever you're trying to do to maybe get out of that depression. Do something really small. And another thing is learn about depression. Maybe you do need to go see a therapist. It's okay. Mm-hmm. And a therapist can help you walk through some of the ways to get out of being depressed. And one of the main ways to get out of depression, if alcohol is in your life, is to give up the alcohol. And to do that, sometimes we need to see a doctor. And that would be the the thing to do first is go to a doctor and have them start to steer you in the right direction. So thank you,
Cool.
everybody.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining. We'll be here next week. If you have any topic ideas, let us know, and we'll take those into consideration when we plan for next week. Support the channel over at talksober.com. Click the big button and help us reach more people to spread the message of sobriety and mental well-being and everything like that, so we don't have to wear a Zumbak suit anymore because it doesn't fit. It's not right. It doesn't matter. Thanks again for watching, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.